The sun was shining brightly as Melania Trump, dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit, walked into the bustling luxury car dealership. The place was filled with wealthy buyers, most of whom flaunted their riches in every possible way. Melania didn't seem to fit the usual image of a flashy, high-spending customer today. With no entourage, no flashy jewelry, and an understated demeanor, she appeared like just another ordinary woman exploring the possibility of buying a car. As she approached the sleek red sports car parked in the center of the showroom, a couple of salespeople nearby exchanged amused glances. One of them whispered something under his breath, prompting a burst of laughter from his colleague. Ignoring the subtle chuckles, Melania ran her fingers along the polished surface of the car, lost in thought. It wasn't just a car to her, it symbolized something personal, something deeply tied to a memory she rarely shared with anyone. A young salesman, eager to make a commission, approached her with a smug smile. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, his tone polite, but his eyes betraying a hint of skepticism. Melania looked at him, her expression calm, and asked about the car's specifications. The more questions she asked, the more apparent it became to the staff that they didn't take her seriously. One of them even muttered, "She probably can't afford the rims, let alone the car." Melania heard them, but she didn't react. Instead, she asked the most unexpected question: "How much is it if I pay in cash?" This caught the attention of the entire showroom. People nearby turned to watch, curious to see how the situation would unfold. The salesman chuckled, clearly not believing she was serious. "Cash, huh? Well, that would be a first," he said, smirking at his colleagues. Just as he was about to say something more dismissive, a sudden shift in Melania's expression made him pause. There was something about her calm gaze, something he couldn't quite place. But before he could figure it out, she reached into her handbag, pulled out something unexpected, and placed it on the table in front of him. A thick envelope landed on the polished table with a soft thud, its weight causing a momentary silence in the room. The salesman's smug expression faltered as he stared at it, unsure of what to say. The envelope was clearly filled with cash. A few customers nearby exchanged glances, intrigued by the unfolding scene. For a moment, it seemed like Melania's bold move had shifted the atmosphere entirely. But instead of respect, the salesman's face twisted with disbelief. "Look, ma'am," he said, forcing a laugh, "this isn't exactly how things work here. People like you don't just walk in and drop cash for a car like this. We're used to dealing with serious buyers." His words hung in the air, dripping with condescension. A few other staff members chuckled softly, entertained by what they assumed was another case of someone trying to act wealthy without the means to back it up. Melania didn't flinch. Her composure remained steady, her eyes locked on the salesman's, as if studying him. He didn't recognize her. None of them did. For a brief second, she thought of revealing her identity, of reminding them exactly who she was, but something stopped her. Instead, she gave a faint smile, one that hinted she knew something they didn't. "Serious buyers, you say?" she asked softly, her tone carrying an edge of amusement. "And what makes a buyer serious? Their appearance? Their clothes?" The salesman blinked, caught off guard by her calm but pointed response. "I'm ready to buy this car right now. Isn't that what matters?" she continued, her voice unwavering. More people gathered around, sensing that this wasn't just a routine sale anymore. There was a tension in the air, a growing sense of anticipation. The manager, noticing the commotion, stepped forward, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking between the salesman and Melania. "She's trying to buy the car in cash," the salesman said with a shrug, as if the idea was ridiculous. "Doesn't seem like the kind of buyer we expect for something like this." The manager turned to Melania, offering a polite but skeptical smile. "Ma'am, we typically don't handle large cash transactions like this. It's unusual, and we have certain policies." Before he could finish, Melania opened the envelope slightly, revealing crisp bundles of high-denomination bills. The sight silenced the whispers and widened a few eyes. Still, the skepticism didn't fully fade. The staff continued to doubt her intentions, thinking perhaps this was some elaborate stunt. But Melania knew exactly what she was doing. There was more to her visit than buying a car. She was here to test something, to see how people judge others based solely on appearance. And so far, they were failing her test miserably. Melania leaned back slightly, her calm demeanor unshaken by the doubt surrounding her. The manager, sensing the growing attention from the onlookers, forced a polite smile. "Ma'am, if you truly wish to proceed, we'll have to verify the authenticity of your payment. It's standard procedure," he said, his voice a little less confident now. Without a word, Melania nodded, her eyes sharp and observant. As the manager reluctantly took the envelope and walked toward the office to verify the cash. A low murmur spread across the showroom. Some customers whispered about how bizarre it was for someone to bring so much cash to buy a car. Others speculated whether she was even serious or just wasting everyone's time. Meanwhile, the young salesman couldn't resist another jab. "You know," he said, smirking, "most people finance these cars or use bank transfers. Walking in with cash, well, it's a bit unusual, wouldn't you say?" His tone was mocking, but Melania didn't respond immediately. She simply gave him a measured look, the kind that made him shift uncomfortably on his feet. "I guess being unusual is better than being predictable," she said calmly, her words carrying a weight that hung in the air. A few nearby customers chuckled softly, clearly entertained by her sharp comeback. The salesman's smirk faltered, and he quickly turned away, pretending to busy himself with some papers. Minutes passed and tension continued to build. All eyes were on Melania, waiting to see what would happen next. The manager finally returned, his expression unreadable. He cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Ma'am," he began, his tone noticeably more respectful, "we've verified everything. The payment is in order, and you're free to complete the purchase." The room went silent. The disbelief was palpable as everyone processed what had just happened. The same people who had been quietly mocking her now looked stunned. The young salesman shifted nervously, realizing how wrong he had been. Melania took a step forward, but instead of heading toward the car or signing any documents, she turned to the manager. "I'm not buying the car anymore," she said, her voice calm yet firm. "I came here to see how people treat someone they don't recognize, someone they think doesn't belong." Her words cut through the silence like a knife. The manager opened his mouth to protest, but Melania raised a hand, stopping him. "I've seen enough," she continued. "Next time, maybe you should treat every customer with respect, regardless of how they look." She picked up her bag, turned around, and began walking toward the exit, leaving behind stunned silence and a room full of people who wouldn't forget her visit anytime soon. But just as she reached the door, she paused, glanced back at the young salesman, and said one last thing that left everyone speechless. Melania's gaze locked on the young salesman, who now looked visibly uncomfortable. "You should never judge someone by how they appear," she said, her voice steady but carrying an undeniable authority. "It's easy to assume, easier to mock, but hard to admit when you're wrong." Her words weren't loud, but they struck deep, leaving the young man speechless. Before anyone could react, the dealership's glass doors opened, and a black SUV pulled up outside. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out, accompanied by two discreet security personnel. The air in the room shifted instantly as murmurs spread like wildfire. People had begun recognizing who she really was. The manager's face turned pale as he pieced together the truth. "Madam First Lady, please, wait," the manager called out, hurrying toward her. "I sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding. It was a terrible mistake. Please allow us to make things right. You're more than welcome to take the car. On the house." Melania turned around slowly, her expression calm yet powerful. "You don't need to apologize because of who I am. You should apologize because of how you treated someone you thought was beneath you," she said, her voice filled with quiet conviction. The entire room was now frozen, every person captivated by her presence and words. She walked back toward the car she had originally shown interest in, gently running her hand over its glossy surface once more. "I didn't come here for charity," she added, glancing at the manager. "I came to remind people like you that respect isn't reserved for wealth or status. It's something every human deserves." The young salesman looked down, clearly embarrassed by his earlier behavior. Melania could have humiliated him further, but instead she chose to leave him with a lesson. Next time someone walks in here, no matter what they look like, treat them with dignity. You never know who they might be or what they might teach you. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the dealership, her head held high. The SUV door opened and she stepped inside, leaving behind a room full of humbled faces. As the vehicle drove away, the staff and customers stood in silence, realizing they had just witnessed something far more valuable than the sale of a car. An unforgettable lesson in humility and respect. By the time the SUV disappeared down the street, the young salesman finally found his voice. "Who was she, really?" he asked, almost in a whisper. A nearby customer, still staring at the door, replied, "That was Melania Trump." The room fell silent once again, the weight of what had just occurred settling in. No one could shake the image of Melania walking out of that showroom, leaving behind a lesson that resonated far deeper than any transaction. The young salesman stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing, processing the reality of what he had just witnessed. He had underestimated her, not just as a buyer, but as a person. And now he was left to reflect on the choices he had made. Outside, the SUV sped down the street, with Melania in the back seat, her gaze fixed ahead, her expression unreadable. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even disappointed. She had simply done what she set out to do: expose the prejudices people often harbor, even unknowingly. She had shown them that wealth and status shouldn't define a person's worth, and neither should assumptions based on appearances. As the city passed by her window, she allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The day had not been about proving her worth. It was about reminding people of the power of respect. And in the end, that was something worth more than any car, any transaction, or any material possession. Back at the dealership, things were never the same. The young salesman, though still feeling the sting of his mistake, couldn't help but take Melania's words to heart. His interactions with customers would never be the same again. He learned that respect, kindness, and humility were the true markers of a person's character, and that judgment based on appearance was never the right path. The manager, once quick to dismiss Melania, found himself in a quiet moment of introspection. His store had witnessed an important moment, one that could not be undone. He wondered how many other moments had slipped by unnoticed. How many customers had walked through those doors and been judged for reasons far beyond their control. He couldn't change the past, but he vowed to treat each person who walked in his dealership with the dignity they deserved. And so the story of Melania Trump's visit to the dealership became more than just an encounter. It became a catalyst for change, a reminder to everyone that in a world often defined by wealth, status, and appearances, the true value of a person is measured by the respect they give and receive.